Good day, everyone. You are welcome to chemistry class. Today we'll be looking at the topic that says halogens and their compounds. Halogens and their compounds. What do you mean by halogens? Halo means salt. Gen means producer or former. So the word halogen means salt former. Halogens, as we have been taught in periodic table, they are the group 7 elements. We call them the halogen families. They include fluorine, which is the number 1 among them there, followed by chlorine, then bromine, iodine, and astatine. Fluorine is the most reactive element among the halogens. It is the most reactive. We can also call it the most electronegative among them. And as a matter of fact, fluorine is the most electronegative element in the periodic table, because if you are to consider the electronegativity of elements in the periodic table, electronegativity increases across the period and decreases down the group. So if you are to follow that trend very well, if it is increasing across the period, that means from period 1 the highest will be in period 7. So that means group 7 elements are the most electronegative in each period. And if you are to move down the group, electronegativity decreases down the group. So you can see that fluorine will be the most electronegative among them, followed by chlorine, followed by bromine, down the group like that. So fluorine is the most reactive among the halogens and the most electronegative among them, and by way of extension the most electronegative in the periodic table. We also have astatine, which is also radioactive. Giving a brief description of each of these elements, astatine is a radioactive element. It can be made artificially and it does not occur naturally. Bromine and iodine are chemically similar to chlorine. That is, chlorine, bromine, and iodine, they have some chemical similarities. Halogens are found in group 7 of the periodic table, as we have said earlier, and let's look at their characteristics now, one after the other. Number 1, they are strongly electronegative elements. We have talked about that one. They are electronegative element, that is, they have attraction for electron when they are combining with other elements. They exist naturally as non-polar diatomic molecules. Non-polar meaning that is homonuclear compound. Non-polar, ClCl, that's diatomic, that's talking about chlorine molecule. ClCl, none of them is positive, none of them is negative. That's what we mean by non-polar. And they exist as diatomic, that is, they exist in 2, Cl2, F2, Br2, I2, like that. Fluorine and chlorine are gases. Bromine is a liquid, while iodine is a solid. That is the trend in their states of matter down the group of the halogens. Fluorine, which is the number 1, and chlorine, both of them exist as gas at room temperature. Bromine is a liquid at room temperature, while iodine is a solid at room temperature. Number 4, fluorine is yellow. Talking about their color, fluorine is yellow in color. Chlorine is greenish yellow. It's a greenish yellow gas. Bromine is dark red, while iodine is black. Then another characteristic is that they are volatile substances. That is, they vaporize easily, because those ones that are not even gases among them, they evaporate easily. That is what we mean by saying that they are volatile substances. Number 6, they easily accept one electron from a metallic atom to form univalent anions, which is known as the halides, during their chemical combination with a metal. Because metal readily give electron, they tend to accept an electron to form a stable octet structure. So as a result of that, they become negatively charged. That is, becoming anions, and those anions are called halides from the word halogens. For example, you can have sodium halide, potassium halide, calcium halide. Any of the halogens can fit into those halides. Number 7, they are soluble in water. Fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, they are soluble in water. That is, as all of them exist, whether those ones that exist in gas, liquid or solid, they can dissolve in water. Their dissolution in water is a chemical change that produces new substances. When we get to the chemical properties of them, of those halogens, we'll see more about that one. They are strong oxidizing agents. I believe we have been taught on oxidation and reduction reaction, so there is no need of taking much time on describing halogens as strong oxidizing agents. But one thing that we know is that they are capable of taking electron. So that's one of the things that make them strong oxidizing agents. They react with silver to form silver halides. That's number 9 characteristic. For example, silver fluoride, silver chloride, silver bromide, and all these silver halides are insoluble in water. They are insoluble in water except silver fluoride. So the silver halides are insoluble in water except the silver fluoride. Then the number 10 characteristic is that they form hydrogen halides. All of them form hydrogen halides. We have hydrogen fluoride, hydrogen chloride, hydrogen bromide, hydrogen iodide. And these hydrogen halides are gases, and they dissolve in water to give strong acids, except hydrogen fluoride, which is liquid and gives a weak acid. But all these hydrogen halides, except hydrogen fluoride, they are gases and dissolve in water to give strong acid. For example, hydrogen chloride dissolves in water to give hydrochloric acid. Hydrogen bromide dissolves in water to give hydrobromic acid. So, and all these acids, they are strong acids, except hydrogen fluoride, which is a weak acid. Hydrogen fluoride is not even a gas, it exists as a liquid. Though that one too can dissolve in water, but the acid that is going to give is a weak acid. Why it is a weak acid will be explained when we get to on the topic acid, bases and salts. So there is an assignment for the student here which says that with the aid of chemical equations, describe what happens when each of fluorine, chlorine and bromine dissolves in water. As you can see in the question, in the note there, when fluorine gas dissolves in water, when chlorine gas dissolves in water, when bromine gas dissolves in water, what happens? Write chemical equation for each of the dissolution. We have been told earlier that the dissolution of these chemical compounds, they are chemical changes that produces new substance. It's not like the dissolution of salt in water that you can reverse it like that. So that is that about one. Let's move on to chlorine. Taking chlorine as one of the representatives of the halogens. Let's discuss on chlorine. Chlorine is the most important element of the halogen family. It's very important because it is involved in the production of so many compounds which are very important and useful in the industries and in the laboratories and even at home. Like the other halogens, it does not occur free in nature because it is too reactive. What they are telling you is that what they mean by that statement is that chlorine in its free state exists as chlorine gas. Chlorine gas does not exist in nature. You can't see chlorine gas naturally that exists naturally. Any chlorine gas that you come in contact with was manufactured in the laboratory. So chlorine gas does not exist naturally because it is very, very reactive. Rather, for you to see chlorine, it exists in a combined state with other elements in nature. It is usually found in a combined state in nature, usually as chlorides. The most important and the most common among them is sodium chloride, which is the common salt that we all use to cook at home. That one can be found naturally. It is found in the sea and even as salt deposits. when the seawater is being evaporated, sodium chloride comes out of it. That's the natural way. That's one of the natural ways in which chlorine exists in combination with sodium as sodium chloride. It exists naturally in combination with some other elements too, but that is the most common one, and we will not want to move beyond that one at this particular stage. Now, how is chlorine being prepared? Let's look at the laboratory preparation of chlorine. Preparation of chlorine. In the laboratory, chlorine is usually prepared by the oxidation of concentrated HCl, that's concentrated hydrochloric acid, with a strong oxidizing agent like manganese 4 oxide. You can also use potassium tetraoxomanganate 7, which is also known as potassium permanganate, or you can as well use lead 4 oxide. Any of these three strong oxidizing agents, when it is reacted with conc hydrochloric acid, it gives chlorine gas, as you can see in the two equations given there. The first equation is the one involving manganese 4 oxide and hydrochloric acid, giving manganese 2 chloride plus water and chlorine gas being given off there. The second one is the one that involves the use of potassium permanganate, potassium tetraoxomanganate 7 with hydrochloric acid there, giving us manganese 2 chloride, potassium chloride, 8 molecules of water and 8 moles of water and 5 moles of chlorine gas. So any of these method can be used to prepare chlorine in the laboratory, and the diagram for the preparation of chlorine in the laboratory is also given there. Now let's take note of some things in that diagram. We saw that water was put immediately after the reaction mixture in a conical flask in that setup. The essence, as you can see there, the essence of that one is to remove hydrogen chloride gas. Any hydrogen chloride gas that may evolve from the conc HCl. We are using conc hydrochloric acid as our reactant for the production of chlorine gas. So a conc hydrochloric acid will also will be fuming, will be releasing hydrogen chloride gas up, which can enter and mix with the chlorine that we are preparing. So in order to trap any hydrogen chloride gas that is coming out of that conc HCl, that's why we put water inside the conical flask there, so that as the reaction mixture, the product that is being produced, which is the chlorine gas, is coming out of that reaction mixture, any hydrogen chloride gas that is there will be trapped inside the water, because it is a very soluble gas. Therefore, anything that is leaving that conical flask containing water there will now be the chlorine gas that we are actually trying to produce. And as it is moving on again, you see that there's another conical flask that was put there containing concentrated tetraoxosulfate 6 acid, that's conc H2SO4. The essence of having that conc H2SO4 in that second conical flask is to serve as a drying agent, to dry the chlorine gas being produced, to dry the chlorine gas that is being produced. Now, as we're saying, the function of that conc H2SO4 there is to serve as a drying agent for the chlorine gas that was produced. Conc H2SO4 is a good drying agent, and in the laboratory we normally use it to dry a gas or any substance that is acidic, because the conc H2SO4 itself is an acid. So you cannot use it to dry a gas like ammonia, which is a base, which is basic in nature. So you use conc H2SO4 to dry most things that are mostly acidic or neutral. That is that about the laboratory preparation of chlorine. What if chlorine want to be produced in the industry, that is on a large scale? So chlorine is manufactured industrially by the electrolysis of brine or molten sodium chloride or magnesium chloride or calcium chloride. Electrolysis of any of these 1, 2, 3, 4 compounds can be used to manufacture chlorine in large quantity. That is what we mean by industrial preparation of chlorine. Brine, as you know, is a concentrated form of sodium chloride. Then it's different from molten sodium chloride. Is when you make sodium chloride into a liquid form, not solution, no, but liquid form, melting it. Molten magnesium chloride or calcium chloride can as well be electrolyzed to give us chlorine in large quantity. So such chlorine that is manufactured by the electrolytic method, is then liquefied and stored under pressure in steel cylinders. So they are stored inside steel cylinders. That's about the preparation of chlorine. Now let's talk about the physical properties of chlorine. Number one, it is a greenish yellow gas with an unpleasant choking smell. Choking means that it can make a man to choke. I believe you know the meaning of the word choke. And if somebody inhales such a gas, the person will not be able to breathe very well. So another physical property of chlorine is that it is denser than air. That is, it is heavier than air, and that is the reason why the gas during its preparation is collected by downward delivery. Let's go back to the diagram of the laboratory preparation of chlorine to see what we mean by downward delivery. Now, as you can see in the diagram there, the chlorine gas produced was collected by downward delivery. That is, the gas as it is being produced is going down into the jar, that container for collecting the gas. Downward delivery of gas is also known as upward displacement. What do we mean by the displacement there? As the gas is being delivered downward, it is any air that is inside that container, that jar, that long cylinder is called jar. Any air that is inside that jar will be displaced upward. So that is what I mean by downward delivery or upward displacement of air. Gases that are heavier than air are collected by this particular method. So any gas that is denser than air can easily be collected by downward delivery. And usually another thing about the collection of such a gas is that most of the time such gases are not collected over water, because they are soluble in water. So any gas that is soluble in water cannot be collected over water. Most of the gases that are being collected over water are insoluble gases and gases that are less dense than air, that is, that are lighter than air. So such gas will be collected over water, and such method is called upward delivery or downward displacement. So please take note of that. Now I'm still continuing about the physical properties of chlorine. Number 3 says it is moderately soluble in water. Chlorine is soluble in water. Another thing is that it can be liquefied under pressure. That is, when you apply pressure to chlorine in a closed container, the gas will become liquid. It will be liquefied. And lastly, under the physical properties that we have here, is that it is poisonous. The gas is a poisonous gas. Now let's talk about the chemical properties of chlorine. Number 1, the gas is a very reactive one. It combines readily with metals to form metallic chlorides. As you can see there, sodium reacting with chlorine to give us sodium chloride, zinc, another metal, reacting with chlorine to give us zinc chloride, iron reacting with chlorine to give us iron 3 chloride. Iron 3 chloride is formed. There is also iron 2 chloride, but iron 3 chloride is more stable than iron 2 chloride. Therefore, ordinarily, when chlorine is reacted with ion, the more stable product is expected to be formed. The only thing that can make the less stable product to be formed is when the supply of chlorine in such reaction is limited. So that's when you can have iron 2 chloride. So but here you have iron 3 chloride. Another chemical property of chlorine is that it combines with non-metals as well. Example of non-metal that chlorine combines with, as you can see in the equation here, is hydrogen gas. So reacting with chlorine gas there to give us hydrogen chloride gas, hydrogen chloride, HCl. If it is a gas, you call it hydrogen chloride. But if it is in an aqueous solution, you call it hydrochloric acid. Another chemical property of chlorine is that it displaces any halogen below it in group 7. Among other members of the halogen family, anyone that is below chlorine, fluorine is the number 1 there, is the one on top, followed by chlorine, fluorine number 1, followed by chlorine. Then after chlorine, the one that are below it, like bromine and iodine, chlorine can easily displace any of these two from their compounds. So you can see it when chlorine gas reacts with sodium bromide, bromine will be pursued. I'm using the word pursued, that it is displacing it. Bromine will be pursued from such compound and will be replaced by chlorine. So you have sodium chloride and bromine as the products. Then you can also see chlorine gas reacting with hydrogen iodide there. So chlorine will chase away iodine from such compound, and you are going to have hydrogen chloride, while iodine will be discharged. Then when chlorine also reacts with sodium iodide, the same thing will take place. Chlorine will replace the iodine atom in sodium iodide and will give us sodium chloride and discharge iodine. Another chemical of chlorine is that it reacts with methane to form chloromethane and fumes of hydrogen chloride gas. As you can see in the equation there, methane reacts with chlorine. This reaction usually takes place in the presence of light. Is an example of photochemical reaction. The essence of the light in such reaction is to enhance the breaking up of chlorine gas into chlorine atoms, where one of the 2 chlorine atoms will now substitute one of the 4 hydrogens in methane that you can see there. So the product will give us chloromethane or methylchloride. It's one of the organic reaction, and it is called substitution reaction. Substitution in the sense that chlorine is substituting hydrogen in such reaction. Another chemical property is that it also reacts with ammonia. That is, chlorine reacts with ammonia to give hydrogen chloride gas, which reacts with excess ammonia to form ammonium chloride. Now let's look at this reaction. It occurs in 2 stages. The first stage is a situation whereby ammonia gas reacts with chlorine gas to give us nitrogen gas and hydrogen chloride. Now, if such reaction is allowed to continue, that is, when there is enough supply of ammonia gas for that reaction, the reaction will continue. Excess ammonia gas will react with hydrogen chloride that is being formed and end up giving us ammonium chloride. So it is a reaction that can occur in 2 stages. If there is enough supply of ammonia, the reaction will go into completion by giving us ammonium chloride. Okay, number 6, chlorine reacts with water to give hydrogen chloride and oxochlorate 1 acids, which is also known as chlorine water, and the formula is HClO. When chlorine dissolves in water, the dissolution of chlorine in water is a chemical change, as we have been told earlier. So when, according to the equation that you can see there, chlorine reacts with water there to give hydrogen chloride gas, hydrochloric acid, that's HCl, aqueous solution of HCl, that's hydrochloric acid, and oxochlorate 1 acid, that's HClO or HOCl, whichever way you call it. That is what is called chlorine water. So the chlorine water in the presence of sunlight, this is another photochemical reaction. Chlorine water, that's HOCl, in the presence of sunlight breaks up to release oxygen, while the hydrochloric acid will be formed at the end of the day. So that's the reaction of chlorine with water. Another chemical property of chlorine is that it oxidizes hydrogen sulfide to give yellow deposit of sulfur. We have been told earlier that the halogens are oxidizing agents, so it reacts with hydrogen sulfide to release hydrogen chloride gas, and sulfur will be deposited. That's yellow color that we see as the deposit, that's the color of sulfur. So that's oxidation and reduction reaction. Chlorine is the oxidizing agent, hydrogen sulfide is the reducing agent. So chlorine is oxidizing hydrogen sulfide by adding itself to the substance to form HCl, addition of electronegative elements, which is also another way of defining oxidation. And number 8 property of chlorine that we have here is that it also oxidizes green iron 2 chloride to yellow iron 3 chloride, and another thing that it oxidizes is trioxosulfate 4 ion to tetraoxosulfate 6 ion. Trioxosulfate 4 ion to tetraoxosulfate 6 ion. So let's look at the one of iron 2 chloride to iron 3 chloride 4. So from that first equation that we see there, iron 2 chloride FeCl2 reacts with chlorine to give us iron 3 chloride. As we have said earlier, that iron 2 chloride is not as stable as iron 3 chloride. So when chlorine reacts with it, and we have told the other time that when there is excess supply of chlorine during the reaction of iron and chlorine, it is iron 3 chloride that will be formed. But if the supply of chlorine is not enough, iron 2 chloride will be formed. So which means later, if you need iron 3 chloride, you react it with more chlorine to get iron 3 chloride. Then the other one, another oxidizing effect of chlorine is that in the presence of water, it reacts with trioxosulfate 4 acid, that's H2SO3, to give tetraoxosulfate 6 acid. The oxidation state of sulfur in H2SO3 was +4. Now in H2SO4 that is being given is +6. So there is increase in oxidation number, and that is another definition of oxidation. Whenever there is increase in oxidation number, so we can also call it oxidation. So by so doing, chlorine has oxidized H2SO3 to H2SO4. Number 9, when chlorine is bubbled through a cold dilute solution, they use the word cold dilute there to mean the fact that without heating, you don't need to apply heat into such reaction. A cold dilute solution of sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide a pale yellowish mixture of the oxochlorate 1 and chloride salts is formed. Look at the reaction between chlorine and sodium hydroxide. It takes place at room temperature. So it will give us sodium oxochlorate 1, that's NaOCl, and sodium chloride plus water. On the other hand, if you are using potassium hydroxide, it is going to give us potassium oxochlorate 1 plus potassium chloride and water. So that's if the reaction is taking place at room temperature. But in the case whereby you heat the reaction mixture, that is chlorine and sodium hydroxide, or whether chlorine and potassium hydroxide, that's hot concentrated, and the base, the alkali, should be concentrated this time, and you apply it, another type of products will be obtained. It is going to give us a mixture of trioxochlorate 5 and the chloride of the metal. So if it is sodium hydroxide that you are using this time, and it is conc, and you apply it, you are going to have sodium trioxochlorate 5 plus and sodium chloride with water. If it is potassium hydroxide that you are using to react with chlorine gas, as you can see in the equation there, it will give potassium trioxochlorate 5 and potassium chloride plus water. Now, still talking about the reaction, a similar reaction in this manner. Bleaching powder is produced by bubbling chlorine. Bleaching powder is produced by bubbling chlorine through a freshly prepared solution of slaked lime. Still talking about the reaction of chlorine with alkalis. So we have used sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide in the first case. Now, if you are using slaked lime, whose formula is calcium hydroxide, if you are using slaked lime, whose formula is calcium hydroxide, you are going to have calcium oxochloride, that is CaClCl2 monohydrate, that is with 1 mole of water of crystallization, calcium oxochloride with 1 mole of water of crystallization, and that substance is what is called the bleaching powder. So that is how the bleaching powder that is being used at home, produced in industry, are being made by the reaction of chlorine with slaked lime, that's calcium hydroxide. Moving on to the number 10 chemical property of chlorine, we can see that it is a common bleaching agent. Chlorine is a common bleaching agent. Why? Because of its ability to react with water. When chlorine reacts with water, it forms oxochlorate 1. We have seen that one earlier, which is HOCl, that's chlorine water. Now, chlorine water decomposes in the presence of light, as we have seen earlier, to release oxygen. The oxygen released here is the one that is going to oxidize the dye to form a colorless compound. You can see hydrogen oxochloride here. The other one happens in the presence of sunlight, but this one we are not after the photochemical nature of this reaction, and that is why the oxygen released according to this particular reaction here is still the same reaction, but the oxygen released is not O2. And the reason is that we are not interested in the oxygen gas as the O2 that is being released in the reaction that was given earlier when chlorine reacts with water and the oxochlorate 1 acid form is splitting up. What we are after here is that when the oxochlorate 1 acid breaks up or decomposes, it releases oxygen that reacts with the dye and oxidize the dye to form a colorless compound. By so doing, the color in the dye has been removed because the final product now is now colorless. Meanwhile, dye or whatever stain that you want to remove with oxochlorate 1 acid, the color in that dye will now become colorless. So by so doing, we say that the dye or the material has been bleached by chlorine. This is how the action of such chemical reaction takes place. Now let's move down to a layman's term. The oxochlorate 1 acid that you are seeing there, another name for it is called hypochloric acid. And whether we should say coincidentally or fortunately, that bleaching agent called hypo, this is a major chemical component of it. Hypochloric acid, HOCl. That is the trivial or old name. The IUPAC name is oxochlorate 1 acid. So hypo, that we are using to wipe dirty color from a particular cloth, is made up of this particular chemical compound. So that's that about the chemical properties of chlorine. Now, how do we test for chlorine in the laboratory? If you see a gas, you want to know which gas it is. Number one, the first thing that you need to know is to identify the gas by the color, by the physical property. We all know that chlorine is a greenish yellow gas and has an irritating smell or choking smell. It has a choking smell, it has irritating smell. So a gas with a greenish yellow gas with an irritating smell is likely to be chlorine. And to confirm that, you can it turns a damp blue litmus paper into pink because the gas is acidic. It turns blue litmus paper into pink, and after that it bleaches the blue litmus paper. After turning it to pink, the color can disappear and fade away. As we all know, when chlorine dissolves on the water on the litmus paper, that's why we say damp blue litmus paper. This reaction that we are seeing above here in number 10 is going to occur. So that pink color that the thing turned to will be removed at the end of the day. Then another way to confirm the test for another confirmatory test for chlorine is that it turns a damp starch iodide paper to dark blue. How does that one occur? What is the chemistry behind turning starch iodide paper to dark blue? We know that chlorine is more reactive than iodine because iodine is below chlorine in the among the halogen family. So chlorine will displace iodine away from starch iodide paper. So therefore, iodine will be liberated as I2, and that is the dark blue that we are going to see there. So when chlorine displaces iodine from starch iodide, you have starch chloride. Then iodine will be discharged as dark blue color. So that's another way of testing for chlorine. Now let's move to the uses of chlorine. Of course, there is no way we can be talking about such chemical all this while and we will not talk about the uses. That's even one of the parts of the definition of chemistry, which says that chemistry is the study is a branch of science that this is a study of composition, properties, and uses. If you study something without something that is of no use, then there is no point studying that particular thing. There must be there must be usefulness of such thing that you are studying. So what are the uses of chlorine? Number one, it is used as germicide in the treatment of water and sewage. In the treatment of water for township supply, chlorine is being used to serve as germicide to kill the germs. It's a highly reactive gas. It's highly oxidizing in nature. That is why it will be difficult for germs, all those small organisms, to be able to survive in the presence of chlorine. Another use of chlorine is that it is used as a bleaching agent. It is used as a bleaching agent. Chlorine is used in the manufacture of so many important chemicals, and we are going to see some of them as number 3, 4 downward like that. One of the important chemicals that chlorine is being used to manufacture is the trichloromethane, tetrachloromethane, and so on like that. All these ones, they are important organic solvents. They are being used in the laboratory to dissolve so many organic compounds. Trichloromethane, tetrachloromethane. So chlorine is being used to manufacture them. Then another thing that is being used is that chlorine is being used to manufacture is trichloroethanol. That's another chemical, organic chemical, which is also known as chlorine, and that one is used for making insecticide, DDT insecticide. That DDT is one of the insecticides. DDT is an organic compound, diphenyl dimethyl trichloroethane. Diphenyl dimethyl trichloroethane. So it's an insecticide that is being used to kill insects, especially on farmlands and even in stores. Chlorine is also used to manufacture PVC and synthetic rubber. The full meaning of PVC is polyvinyl chloride. Polyvinyl chloride. So they use chlorine also to manufacture PVC, and I know many of you know the usefulness of PVC and also synthetic rubber. It is also used to manufacture hydrochloric acid, that important popular acid that is being used in the laboratory for so many things. So chlorine is used to manufacture hydrochloric acid. It is also used to manufacture potassium trioxochlorate 5, KClO3. KClO3 is used for making matches and fireworks. Matches that used for to set something on fire. Then it is also used for making sodium trioxochlorate 5. That's NaClO3. Sodium trioxochlorate 5, which is an herbicide. That's an herbicide then for killing weeds on the farmland. Another one is that it is used for making bleaching powder. We saw that one among the chemical properties of chlorine, for making bleaching powder and for making sodium oxochlorate 1. These two compounds, bleaching powder and sodium oxochlorate 1, are widely used in dye works and laundries. In laundry, for bleaching, for removing stains from chemicals, and even in dye works, for removing some dyes or for making one or two designs. Those that are into dye works, they will know more about that one. Then lastly, we can see that domestic antiseptics like acidified sodium oxochlorate 1 are made also from chlorine. So acidified sodium oxochlorate 1 is a domestic antiseptic, also for killing germs. So this is where we'll be stopping for today. In our next class, we continue under the halogens and their compounds. Thank you.